My name is Kenneth Cukier. I'm the Deputy Executive Editor of The Economist. Pleased to welcome you here at the Infosys Pavilion to talk about education in emergencies, what happens when the cameras leave. Now, this is something close to my heart because I'm a journalist and I know all about being in front of a camera and being behind one as well. I've reported from crisis situations, and I've seen the journalists unpack as well for pros and cons. The benefit is it brings attention where it needs to be for emergency situations, but then the pack just moves on from one crisis to the next. And if it doesn't have that attention and that staying power, of course, it pulls the heartstrings at the outset, but you lose something in terms of the constancy of deeper purpose and meaning and reform that needs to happen, because it's always rolling, the caravan's always moving on. So we'd like to take tonight as a moment to stop time and examine this issue and think about it in terms of what it means for kids and for schools. Schools are essential because they're not buildings. And in crisis situations, schools are essential because they're the lifeline for stability for kids. And if they're a lifeline for stability for kids, they're a lifeline for recovery for societies for the next 40 years. So it's important that we do something about it. What I'd like to do right now, first, is to invite onto stage someone from the Ukraine to talk about the reforms they're doing there. Anastasiia. What's that? Oh, the video. I beg your pardon. The video first. I thought you'd introduce the video. We're going to have a video first to see about an activity that's taking place, and then we're going to bring people on stage to have a conversation about it. So please, let's see the video.
As the invasion of Ukraine began in February 2022, a wave of devastation swept across the nation.
The Russian president says a military operation is now underway in eastern Ukraine.
And there are reports of explosions and attacks at several major Ukrainian cities.
By January 2024, the war in Ukraine had devastated countless civilian lives, leaving a profound impact on families and innocent children. It also resulted in the destruction of over 350 schools and 3,700 learning spaces. By August, nearly 1.9 million children, almost half of all school-aged children in Ukraine, had to rely on remote learning systems in the midst of an ongoing war.
Багато дітей мають прогалини у знаннях через перерви в навчанні та складність доступу до якісних освітніх платформ. Крім того, війна сильно вплинула на психоемоційний стан учнів. Вони часто стикаються зі стресом, тривожністю та труднощами у концентрації уваги.
Globally, there are 250 million children out of school, mainly due to poverty, but also to conflict and natural disaster. Street Child works for a world where every child is safe, in school and learning. Since 2008, we've helped 1.5 million children in over 20 countries to realise their right to education and safety. Our team decided within 24 hours of the Russian invasion of Ukraine that we were going to launch a major response.
To help children reclaim their education, Street Child, in collaboration with Infosys Springboard, established digital learning centers in various strategic locations across Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. The Eastern Oblast was chosen for its severe lack of international support and pressing local needs. These digital learning centers serve children of all ages, genders and abilities as substitutes for schools.
Secondly, we've done a lot of work to support teachers to be psychosocially strong themselves and also to care for the children under their tuition. Addressing the reality that a lot of children do not have the opportunity to attend a physical school, we've done a lot of work in the space of digital education.
As part of this effort, Street Child developed vital content for teachers and students through the Infosys Springboard platform. The pilot content is now also available beyond the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast.
Infosys as a company has always believed in the transformative power of learning, especially leveraging technology. And tech is borderless, so whenever there is a disruption in the absence of a physical infrastructure for learning, technology can act as a connector to ensure continuity. The model ensures that there is creation of a physical infrastructure where children can come and securely learn, the right kind of gadgets to learn from, and a digital learning platform that can scale up any kind of format of content itself. And we believe that this model can be scaled up and rapidly implemented in any kind of emergency situation all over the world.
By September 2024, a total of 7 digital learning centers had opened doors across the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast.
So imagine yourself in a complete chaos, and then suddenly an oasis of normality appears, where children can go and do normal things children do. Study, talk to a friend, ask advice from a classmate, talk to a teacher. They can talk to a psychologist about all this madness they are in. They have electricity, internet, gadgets, laptops, everything they need to study. They can access Springboard platform where we upload specially designed courses for them to catch up with education, with different subjects and pass the final exams.
Street Child and Infosys are working together to create pathways to digital literacy, higher education and career opportunities. In the midst of ongoing challenges, the hope is that this collaborative effort can give Ukraine's children the tools they need today to build a brighter future tomorrow.
Great. Now from Street Child Ukraine, I'd like to invite onto the stage Anastasiia. Thank you, Anastasiia.
This is Nikopol, city in eastern Ukraine, in my country, here with us in Europe. They used to celebrate important days, the day of the city. Back then, it used to be a normal life, like in any other normal cities where you come from. Now Nikopol is on the front line, and life on the front line is different. You wear sports shoes in case you need to race to the nearest shelter. You drive very fast, over 140 kilometers an hour, because you have to be faster than the drone. On the other side of the river, Russians have occupied territory since 2022. That's so close. They send drones over every day. Everything is bombed. Everything or everyone is a target. Schools damaged or destroyed. What's left there? Surprisingly, people, and over 10,000 of children. Education is there too, entirely remote. It's too dangerous to go to school, or there is no more physical school to go to. Online education is not resilient on the front line. Regular attacks with drones or missiles cut out electricity, internet, water for days to end. Gadgets and even basic school supplies are limited. Children rapidly losing knowledge. It gets even worse. Long-term separation from teachers and classmates makes children lose their basic human skill, communication. They start to forget how to talk to each other. That's education on the front line. That's life for children on the front line. Unstable and lonely. Street Child and Infosys are there on the front line for children. Together, we've set up 7 digital learning centers, DLC. I call DLC an educational first aid on the front line. Accessible and safe learning space, rehabilitated, arranged, equipped with everything needed, from furniture to computer equipment, stable internet. Children can go and have access to learning with the teacher offline. They can join extra activities with specially trained tutors. They can talk to a psychologist. Interactive learning is possible. There is access to Infosys Springboard platform, where we've designed courses, special courses for children to catch up with educational losses. DLC, they are not tied to any specific school. DLCs work for the whole community. Every child can go there and be a child again, how it used to be. 2 of such DLCs are in Nikopol. Here is one. It used to be an underground basement. And now? It's a cheery, comfortable, and equipped learning space. It opened last October. The children, they had their first meeting in person with classmates for the first time in 2.5 years. In Nikopol, DLCs also function as a shelter, as a school, 7 days a week, morning till night. Underground education, right on the front line. We asked those children about their dreams and hopes. What do you dream about here on the front line? 10-year-old girl tells us, I dream about surviving until my graduation. Other children say, yes, that's our dream too. Imagine that just 3 years ago, these children, they had dreams we could understand. And now? Not so much. What Nikopol be like, let's say, in 2026, when next Davos takes place? Where will those children be? Will they have made it to graduation? Will they be stolen by Russia and sent to special camps for Ukrainian re-education? Will they be found in mass graves, like in other frontline cities? Life and death on the front line. Nikopol is not far away. Nikopol is just a bit further away from Davos than Lisbon. Nikopol is in our world, your world. Communities like Nikopol, they need your support. Street Child and local organizations we work with are doing everything possible to restore access to education, to restore safe spaces for children. With your support, they can do even more. I'm here today because Street Child and Infosys are making a real difference. They are there in that basement with those children, protecting education on the front line for all of us. Please, thank them and join us.
Okay, I would like to ask my panelists to join me on stage now. Inderpreet, Tom, and Lisa. Thank you. And let me start by asking the audience, first, has anyone here been in education that's been interrupted? Interestingly, no. All of your education has not been interrupted in any way. Do you know anyone whose education has been interrupted because of conflict or earthquake? Yeah. There's a couple of people nodding. Yeah, a couple of people are nodding their heads. Does anyone want to talk about the situation that they saw, that experience, and what they know from the person that's happened? What it meant to them, what it meant to their communities, how it got restored? Don't have to, but if somebody wanted to volunteer it. Okay. So it's very typical, of course, particularly in terms of things like natural disasters, where you're going to need to sort of rewire the network, so to speak, sometimes physically, but often digitally, So let me now turn to the panelists and ask, if you had to say whether there was one thing, and just one thing, that was the linchpin to a recovery, whether it was financing, whether it was infrastructure, whether it was physical, whether it was digital, whether it was parental support, if there was just one thing that seemed to be a linchpin for those kids who needed to recover in an educational setting, would there be one? And if so, what is it?
I don't know if there's one. It's like you're trying to educate children, and you need multiple ingredients for this to work. All of what you said is important. The money and the financial support is important, but the money will only go so far if partners like Street Child are not on the ground. If there are no teachers, or if there's no parental support, it doesn't work. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle, I would say, and you need all of the pieces to fall together.
Of course, one needs everything, but is there anything that has a priority that you've witnessed? Yeah, Lisa.
Well, first of all, I really want to say thank you for showing this video and for having Anastasiia opening up this panel, because yes, it shares the story, it shares the experience of what happens in Ukraine, but actually it shares also the question of social responsibility of certain companies to run different initiatives. And I think when you ask your question, I've got this social responsibility in my head, because yes, everything is very interconnected, because it's not only about funding, but it's about will to create certain projects that will make a change. And the needs are very obvious, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm happy to provide some of the terrible numbers of the needs of Ukrainian education now. But, if someone asks me, what shall we do about Ukraine, how to support Ukraine, I always say, find the initiative that you want to support. Whether you're an NGO or you're a private company, it's your social responsibility, and you will be happy to have that social impact. And it's about, I think it's the whole thing about the idea of impact and social responsibility. So I think we should promote this idea more. So thanks for everyone in this room and the organizers who are actually making things happen and being an example of that.
Yeah, obviously, echo everything that's been said. Fantastic to start with such a powerful piece from Anastasiia. So thank you so much. And I love the fact that I can see those children as I'm talking, because it allows us to really be focused on the issue here. The answer to your question is both, and Inderpreet put it perfectly. You do always need the financing. That's the petrol for the car. You can have a beautiful car, but unless you're sticking the petrol in, or perhaps in this age you're charging it up. I can see Jeff there, so we're charging our cars, right, Jeff? Okay. But you need that design. And that's something that I love about this program. If you just said to me, even 24 months ago, that we as Street Child will be delivering a program as Anastasiia just described and is leading so powerfully, I would have been super surprised. We had never delivered anything even remotely like this, but the encouragement, Infosys came with a certain set of ideas, and obviously a certain set of assets, and we're willing to apply that charge. And we have this incredibly powerful initiative, and we'll get to it, but it's exciting to see how we can take this forwards.
So why don't we hear about what Infosys you brought, and then I'd be interested to know who are the partners that you needed to activate them.
So can I tell a backstory before I answer your question? Infosys has always had deep learning at its core. It's a value that we really cherish. And even back 40 years ago when the company started, kids coming out of engineering school, before we put them onto client projects, we used to take them to our campus in Mysore and give them the last mile training on the latest technologies, get them ready, client ready, so to speak. So we actually pride ourselves in being the largest private university in the world. 750 educators, we can train up to 25,000 people at a given time. And then, as life moved on and pivoted and we became more international and our employees were all over the world, we realized that not everybody could get to Mysore, right? So the online training institute started. And it remains a big part of our value system because in the technology world, everything is changing always. And so we're constantly upskilling and reskilling our employees. So that's one part of it. And then things changed with the launch of our platform, Infosys Springboard, which is what we're using in Ukraine. And the idea really was that if we believe that education is so central for people who've actually gone to college and have trained for it, then why don't we take it into the societies in which we operate in? So Infosys Springboard, our vision for that program is that by 2030, we want 10 million users on it. Right now, there are 8 million users. And it's available to anybody who wants to use it. Content is free. And then what we also added on to that was in the US, we looked at underserved areas with bringing teachers into the equation. So over the last 10 years, we've trained over 1 million teachers. These are high school teachers, primary, secondary school, and the idea is to create a multiplier effect with those teachers, right? So that these underserved communities get the benefit of the latest skills and get people ready for a life that is different, because if you have those skills, then you can get jobs which are not, the jobs of yesterday, but the jobs of tomorrow. And the reason I'm telling this story is because we put education in the way we like to describe it is with all of the technologies, anytime, anywhere, any device education. And the only thing that's standing between you and learning is just your own motivation as an employee or as a person who can have access to this. And then we did something else when COVID happened. We said, let's make this matter. And what does that mean, with artificial intelligence and even before artificial intelligence? I go in and I look at a course and it tells me, okay, you did this course, maybe you should do the next course, right? So it's giving me micro feedbacks, a little bit like you go shopping on Amazon and I wanted to buy this blue scarf, I didn't buy it, something else pops up, right? And that's what this platform is doing. It's giving you feedback, it's telling you what you need to learn, what your peers are learning. So it became, and we've gamified it, right? You get badges and you know what your colleagues are doing. So it's accessible, it's relevant, and it matters. And so the reason I tell this story is that when we partnered with Street Child, the idea was let's take what we are good at, that's education and technology, and tech, as we said in the video, is borderless, and let's take it to a war-hit zone. We'd never done this before. And this isn't about politics. It isn't about who we support or we don't support. It's about the children that we see in front of us, right? How do we ensure that these children continue to stay learning with the limitations that they have? And so that's how the partnership of Infosys and Springboard came to be, that let's bring our asset. Yes, the capital is important, but the platform was more important. The platform that allows, because of technologies, to be able to translate content, to be able to do content in partnership with the government so that it's authentic and it's relevant and it's true to what those people need. So that's the story of Infosys and Street Child.
That's fantastic. Now, Infosys worked with the government.
We have worked with the government to get content to the children in these digital learning centers.
Okay. So, how did that go? And did you get a phone call? Who contacted whom and how?
Well, I'm a member of the parliament. I'm not running this program. I think maybe you would be better to make that a story, how exactly did it work. But I can speak on behalf of many initiatives that are happening inside Ukraine about the problems that we currently face, if I can.
Please.
Or maybe you share.
Please go ahead.
Anastasiia started sharing about what the education looks like in the front line. But I want to tell you that around 1/5 of Ukrainian territory is occupied. They do face one group of problems, and I want to name them. So these children, for instance, who are under occupation, they are forced to receive Russian citizenship. They don't have a choice what kind of education they want to have. They all are just forced to have this propaganda-style education. And we, as the government, are really struggling to have certain programs that would allow these children, when they find a situation that would be possible for them to move to the central Ukraine, somewhere where the territory is not occupied, on actually how this to make it happen. And it's incredibly hard process. We do have some anonymous, confidential procedure, I would say, but not many people can use that. So this is one of the group of the problems. The other problems are under the front line, and Anastasiia talked about that. Basically people, and in some of the territories that were under occupation, but already are liberated, 90% of educational facilities are absolutely destroyed. So the statistics for all these 3 years actually show that around 4,000 educational institutions, it includes schools, universities, and kindergartens, are like partially or fully ruined in Ukraine. 4,000, imagine. And so on these territories, they were occupied but are liberated. So basically there are no physical space, and the physical space actually needs a shelter and completely different needs. And I was at the event with the mayors of Ukraine, different mayors of Ukraine, and especially those who are from the south. All of them were sharing, that they have the program of the shelters building in schools, but the problem that the children don't go to school. They prefer only online education, but exactly as you said, electricity very often just doesn't exist in Ukraine anymore. So, like teachers also have this problem of where they ended up, where they are physically, whether they have a connection or no. Mental health problems, according to UN, at least one in 4 of Ukrainians has severe mental health problems. Serious. And I'm not talking about mild, ones. So I'm a mother myself, and I live in Kiev, and I can tell you that life in Ukrainian school or kindergarten, it's not a front line, but every second day, at least, we have drones, we have serious missiles, and the schools don't work on that day. Like if you have a siren, like they don't open up. So like often as a mother myself, in the morning I'm prepared to bring my child to the kindergarten, and then the siren, and the whole day just, doesn't go the way how it was planned. So there is, and physically it's just absolutely crazy, because in the kindergarten children have like afternoon nap, for instance, but when there is a siren or an attack, they don't have that. And the children usually are wearing actually outdoor clothes when they go to sleep, because they know that there could be a siren, so they will need to go outside to shelter. And the children then don't sleep again. Their mental health is really suffering. So the needs are huge. It's physical needs in terms of facilities. It's a content-based also needs, but also it needs certain completely different approach to the education in crises, because we used to be one of the most educated societies. You don't find a family in Ukraine who didn't go to university. But now the number and the indexes and all like statistics of our children's education was usually very high, but now it's dropping dramatically for COVID reasons, for the war reasons, and if to be very honest, I'm very scared of what to wait in the future when these children would need to have social life, but they in maybe years didn't see anyone. So the government is working on having different partners on board, but mostly, very often it's about safety. So we need to build facilities that have shelter. This is one of the main needs. And I'm sure, and we don't have that yet in the world, but I think we need to put lots of investment also in the research of actually what kind of education, what could be the approaches in this very high risky security threat societies. completely different approach, because unfortunately we are not the ones, and I'm sure that there will be more, unfortunately, wars and conflicts that will have children suffering so much.
Tom, you're part of the solution.
Yeah, we all are, and and without being trite about it, I'd say everyone in this room is part of the solution. There are many competing events in people's Davos calendar, and I just want to thank everyone for making the time to honour the words and everyone who's making a difference here. I think Street Child stands in the middle. We're the kind of glue that holds the whole piece together. We work for a world where every child is safe in school and learning, and to the points that Lisa was making, those three things really often they hang together. It's hard to have the one without the others. At the heart is safe, where you've got the physical safety. You talk about shelters, but I mean mentally safe, mentally strong. I loved it when Anastasiia was talking about children can access psychological support through this program, because unless you're feeling psychologically strong, you're building on quicksand. The super sad thing, it's obvious, but to highlight, is what is happening in Ukraine. Versions of it are happening, of course, in many countries around the world. And so, we need to think about these issues on a global scale. And this is really the DNA of Street Child, the expertise of Street Child. We have expert teams who are educationalists, child protection specialists, and project managers. And early on, you asked about how did we engage the government to get their buy-in. The best programs always have the government's buy-in. You've got to make it as contextual as possible. You've also got to think for the long term. I love the way this panel is focusing when the cameras leave, that longer term perspective, things that the government has got a buy-in and that the local society has a buy-in have got a far greater chance of longevity. And one of those core skills, particularly for our leadership, is to go and find out who are the key decision makers, Ministry of Education. Often you need to speak to the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Child Protection or Social Welfare. Get both those going together is a strong combination, particularly when you're working with
and also local
authorities,
of course. Exactly,
and in different contexts there'll be different categories. You've got to, when we're in Africa, you've got to sit down with the chief, the tribal authorities in many, and that will be as important as the formal settings. If you're in a refugee camp, there'll often be a very strict camp regulation, and so the sort of unique skill set that Street Child brings to the equation is not knowing the answers, but knowing the questions to ask, and having the brave individuals who will go out and package these programs. But we need the government, we need the local actors, we need our corporate partners to provide the ingredients.
If I may just want to say something quite interesting, that the polls show when you ask Ukrainians who are abroad, like what would make them return to Ukraine, so education and the safety of education would be one of the number one answers. Like we have the number of around 300,000 children who left Ukraine last year for the reason of no safety of education. So the parents or a parent made the decision to move these children abroad. So I think this is very important and connected issue to the question of migration, of cooperation on actually how do we make sure that the projects of returning Ukrainians back home, different business links, bilateral cooperation, are actually go aligned with educational projects. I believe it's very important point that we always should focus, because then just nothing will happen, Education and defense should go together.
Yeah. So a key part of Ukraine rebuilding when this conflict comes to an end will be its people, its best people coming back, but without the strong offer of education, that's going to be undermined. And so we see education right at the heart of the future of rebuilding Ukraine.
Yeah.
Can I share a statistic with the audience, or maybe ask, how much humanitarian aid do you think what percentage of it goes to education in emergencies? Like, take a guess, anybody. 3%. Think about that number, right? And Ukraine is one story, and part of what Tom was describing, that what Street Child does is making sure all the kids are in school, learning, safe, and we see this, similar stories playing out in other parts of the world, and to be able to do this successfully, if you have the model, right, you can replicate it, because technology is wonderful, but you ask the question, what ingredient was important? And that's where I think funding comes in. How do you, all of us in the room, whatever expertise we have, whether it's technology, whether it's money, whether it's boots on the ground, how do we scale that for maximum impact? And that's a thought that hopefully, if not all, some of you will take away from today, because you're going to leave a generation behind. And your story that you said is so powerful. I'm sure many a heartstring was tugged at with that, and I hope that it lasts beyond this reception and compels people to do whatever they can in whatever capacity.
So the world had a natural experiment in terms of the role of digital education versus physical education with COVID. And I think at the outset, I think many people were surprised by the degree to which schools, many of them in the West, were able to just take their classrooms and bring them online, as their parents were working from home, if they were able to do that. And then I think about 4 weeks later, the parents woke up and realized that the kids were on TikTok the entire time and actually not learning anything, and that all the promise of digital education was BS and not true, and it wasn't working at all in the lost generation. So the laughter suggests that's not a unique phenomenon. How do you see the role of digital technologies in education in crisis areas and for the recovery versus restoring the physical infrastructure of education?
There's a few of my staff in the crowd, and they'll know that both and is one of my catchphrases. And the answer, of course, is both and. I think we saw how digital and can play a role in COVID. And actually, at the start, it was really good. Then it got really bad quite quickly. There's sort of, as you say, the TikTok phase. But actually, we pushed out of that. We realised we needed to, and we've seen excellent results. But we all knew that it was thin soup compared to the real deal. But you also know that thin soup is a heck of a lot better than no soup. And what I love about the DLC model is the complement. So we're able to have we're able to have the educational continuity through the Springboard platform and through the content that's available through that, and then we're able to provide the that human aspect, that gathering that of course COVID didn't make possible, and we really felt through the skilled facilitators, and so. That's the unique piece here. I guess I'm thinking, obviously, Chief Executive Street Child, thinking about how we take all this forward. This is a highly innovative program, and definitely looking to go in two directions. One is to scale this out as much as we can inside Ukraine, but then second is to kind of make this kind of Ukraine's gift to the world, and see how we can scale the best lessons of this into other contexts. Where the needs are different. A lot of Street Child's work is in Africa, and the challenge of connectivity across the board is always there. Of course, the challenge of electricity is there, but we can provide that in certain. We can guarantee that in certain centres. In many of the countries we work in Africa, in the last 12 or so months, Starlink has become a thing and accessible. So that argument of, well, we can't access the internet has more or less gone away in several countries. Liberia, Sierra Leone are two key Street Child countries. Of course, a generator can provide a charge, and you can see how we can bring people together and open the chance of quality education where it might not have been possible before. So there are very many exciting possibilities globally, as well as absolutely we'll scale this in Ukraine as much as possible.
Is there those lessons that you say that you're learning from Ukraine that you can then bring elsewhere? Can you name one or two of them?
Well, I think I kind of just did. Ideally, if we can get that mix between the quality of digital content, but realizing that if you can overlay that with genuine human interaction, then that is a package that you can really you can really scale.
How do you support the teachers? It's also for.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot, so I mean.
Well, I'm just thinking. I mean, it's the teachers have to know how to use the technology if it's a technology component, and you have to find the teachers if they're overseas. How do you?
We do have a problem with teachers now. I'm not going to hide it. And of course, teachers also are working under huge stress. Like they've learned to move quickly to the shelter, to continue the work. Like I can tell you that I have my private initiative on supporting some of the students who are studying in one of the arts academy in Kiev, and most of them are coming. So I fund some students who are coming from the war zones or moved, or the war really made an impact on them, and so they're studying there. And I know how hard it is for them, and they're studying arts. Like, and sometimes this education cannot be just moved. It's not like a literature class, but you need to go to with your instruments, with everything. It's just not possible. And the teachers are taking that on their shoulders. Like my father is a teacher, music teacher, and he's absolutely exhausted because he needs to move all of them in, then they continue, but teachers are very devoted. They don't receive enough salary. So they do it from their heart. They really very brave people, and some incredible stories are coming from the frontline zones. But in general, it's hard to be a teacher now in Ukraine with all of this. But also, it's physically, it's psychologically hard, and also financially, it's very hard. So we currently are struggling with the policy answers to that as well, and really, we struggle with the fact that teachers went abroad. And now we are actually in the situation that in some of the areas where we still have only online education, we still found the teachers who are, for instance, are somewhere abroad, but actually we may cut this budget, and because it can, we need to give them a choice whether they come back or not, but some people probably will not come back. So we do have a lot of problems on this question.
Briefly, I mentioned it on the video, but a major part of Street Child's work in Ukraine, alongside this program, but some of our wider programming, has been psychological first aid for teachers as human beings in of themselves, but then also to give so that they can feel strong, but then also to give them some techniques to manage the stress and strain of the children in their classes. And I think if we hadn't done that, again, we'd have been building on quicksand. The point of paying teachers can't be made enough. I mean, it's basic, but particularly I think of our work globally. I mean, often teachers are doing it for a song, and really, a bit more resource in their pockets would strengthen them considerably.
Yeah. So at this moment, I'd like to open it up for questions to see what you think, and if there's something that you want to ask the questions to the panel. Who is the first question? Please.
So what keeps you from scaling in Ukraine? You're now in one region, right?
With this program, we're just at the end of the first sort of cycle, so that's the perfect point to drink in the lessons and then write out the plan for how you go forwards. Of course, financial resources will always provide a degree of cap. With a program like this, I think I do always like us to challenge ourselves on how can we, if there's any gold plating, we can knock off the model, which will allow us to stretch out and reach more. Then we'll always do that. And I'll give you one example from our work in Uganda, where Street Child does a lot of its work with local organisations. It's part of our DNA, really. We find local organisations and get behind them. And there was an organisation working with in Kampala with Congolese refugees. They developed a very nice holistic program about training French-speaking Congolese in English, some business skills. And they were running that program at about £400 a head. That was this end-to-end. Well, 24 months later, we had that down to £40 a head by just stretching it, knocking a few bits off. And I do, I'm not the program, lead for this, so I make these comments softly, but it definitely will be part of our process for scaling to see, okay, we've got the essence of this up and running, but actually we're helping hundreds of children. How can it be thousands and tens of thousands? And that will require two things: increased capital and a model which is lower cost per beneficiary.
But Tom, also think of it this way, that, you've got to physically reconstruct some of these centers, right?
Sure.
And you've got people who are on front lines. So like one of the schools or one of the DLCs were actually constructed by all female contractors. Yeah. So, it's like, where are your resources going? Like first aid, medical, what are you going to build? Hospitals and schools. So there's that sort of tug as well, right? So that's why I said yes, money is important, but you need all the other ingredients. And so, sitting here in Davos, there's no way I can even imagine what's happening on the front lines. But even just thinking about things like that make you wonder that, how do we make this go faster, further, and, just broader?
Exactly.
Hello, everyone. Amazing listening to you speak. I'm just conscious everywhere you look, when you walk down the promenade, you see AI written. And having worked very closely with Infosys as one of our partners and seeing what you can do with AI, I wondered how you are, or whether you are, looking at how you incorporate AI into your education model in order to help you scale more quickly.
Yeah. So there is there's already AI built into the platform. It does several things, including translation, right? Because the content needs to be in Ukrainian, so that's one. Two, how do you create additional courses? Like, as students are going through, looking at the content, what next? So you can get like bespoke designs for each of the students. That's another use of the AI. And, it's going to, generative AI in its current form is, taking root, and I think we'll find more and more use cases for it. It could be used, for example, to train teachers, so that you get more, for every teacher you train, you can reach more number of students. So definitely already in the program, but I think we could do more as the AI matures.
Yeah, the answer to that question will get better and better over the years, and I really hope in 12 months' time, again, you look at the pace of these things. I think teacher training is the area that we're looking at the moment, and of course that's one of the most exciting routes to scale in terms of raising learning outcomes across the board. So that's the area that I know that our education team are most looking at this. But just one other tidbit. Street Child started in Sierra Leone, and I've been continually engaged with the context there, and many of the same team who started are still there, and one of whom is Abu, our lead driver. Well, he doesn't actually drive so much anymore because his eyes aren't so good. But anyhow, Abu did not have a chance to go to school. Abu is illiterate, but Abu sends me text messages these days because of the advances of is that AI or not? It's technological advance, and I reply, and that's super cool. Yeah, the world is changing very quickly.
So, please. Yeah.
Amazing work that you're doing. I'm really, and I have a question. I'm from Malawi, and every time we have a natural disaster, whether it's a flood or anything, we don't have electricity and we don't have access to the internet. And that could go over a month or 2 months or 3 months. And it's the same for Mozambique and Zimbabwe. So I wanted to understand, how do you, if you have worked in any area that didn't have access to electricity or the internet, how do you set up a digital learning center that is still active and that still engages students in that essence in a crisis like that?
a great question, and the answer is hitherto. We don't have an example because this, again, the bringing digital into our ways of working in the way we are doing here is brand new. But I think it will become a priority action, because it's a situation like you mentioned, and we were having a meeting about the aftermath of the cyclone in Mozambique just an hour or two ago. Teachers are scattered. They're worrying about their own problems. Are they able to come back to school? But actually, if you can re-establish connectivity, then you can provide something for children whilst regular school life is reassembled, which may take months. So I think this is an example of how our work will be changing very quickly before our eyes if we're alert.
Hi, sorry, I'm Alexandra from SAP. I wondered, you were sharing the 3% statistic, right, in terms of funding that goes to education and emergencies. But there are other organizations that are working in similar spaces and are probably trying out very similar learning methodologies. And I was wondering how you partner potentially with others to be able to accelerate better or reach more scale, or also go into areas that you might not otherwise be able to do by yourself.
Yeah, there are two or three main communities. The British government has put a lot of money behind something called the EdTech Hub, and we're all plugging in our lessons into that. And an impressive body of sort of research is developing, and quite a lot of money is going into the sort of dissemination of that. Particularly in the emergency space, charities are much more connected than we might sort of appear to the naked eye. There are some quite impressive coordination mechanisms. So we are doing the best to share our learnings and build together. But as some of my other answers have brought out, the pace of iteration and development is very fast in this. So, but it's real.
What are those coordination mechanisms?
There'll be the global education cluster will ensure that there is an active, it's co-run by UNICEF and Save the Children, and they will make sure there is an active cluster of education-focused NGOs in every major humanitarian situation. The cluster in Ukraine is very active, and for example, when we're designing a new program, we will go to the cluster leads. So the cluster will meet every week or fortnight, maybe sort of 10 or 20 organizations. Typically, the beginning is international organizations because we're familiar with the cluster system, and then as a context develops, then more of the local organizations will get the hang of what's going on. And then the best international organizations, like Street Child, will go out and introduce local organizations to come along to these meetings. Anyhow, they're happening regularly, and the cluster coordinators will build dashboards of who's building schools here, who's running digital initiatives here, and as and when we kind of, if we think we've got the chance to win some funding, we'll go to the cluster coordinators and say, we think we might have another, 500,000 available. What do you recommend? Or sometimes they'll go the other way. They'll define some priorities and make appeal to cluster partners to go out and secure funding and deliver these types of initiatives. And you'll have the same to differing degrees in other sectors. So there's an nutrition cluster, there's a WASH cluster, there's a child protection cluster. Yeah.
Please.
I wanted to thank you, everyone, for this wonderful panel. It's a great initiative, and as Infosys, I have to be proud of such an initiative and such a direction. One question maybe for the Ministry of Ukraine representative at this point. What is your biggest wish for Ukraine in the future? And what kind of partnering can you imagine can help in addition in the future?
Well, our main wish is that Russia will stop attacking us and will not be able to run aggression. So basically, we want to destroy Russian military capacity. And I think it's something that is very, very deep in all of us, because we know how much we suffer from that aggression. And we just know that we are in a historical moment when finally we are capable, hopefully with international support, to do a lot on that. I always say that, please, there is a lot of motivation and the skills and knowledge in different parts of the world. Try to find an area that you want to support. I want to raise an example of one international school in Ukraine that is absolutely private initiative, and they were having a lot of problems with teachers. It's like international. You pay like it's not free, but most of the foreign nationals who were teachers there left and started to demand a very high salary, because it's like a war risk zone and everything. And I know that they really had trouble, the school board, actually what to do. And then they actually decided to fire everyone and to run a competition and to search for teachers around the world who are wishing to come with much lower salary and to give their time and knowledge to children who need that. And now they have absolutely incredible teachers from different parts of the world, which I think is so culturally important. Many of them actually have a work background in humanitarian world when in the war zone, so they already have this knowledge. And I think that would be a great initiative if we talk about education in different parts of Ukraine and other parts of the world. We should open competitions on behalf of different initiatives to find people. People are main value and resource that can make a change, but motivated people.
So all three of you are here at Davos. We're having this session, and there's people in the audience who can probably do something for you and unlock something for you. What would be your hope that you would leave this session from? Who would you ideally like to knock on your door to say, hey, here's what I can do for you?
Oh, I just can continue that. We can find the best use of, your knowledge and resources in so many areas in Ukraine. It's just a question of whether you're ready for taking a risk. Because many are scared of war risk. But I can tell you from Ukrainian government and also from other initiatives, international initiatives, that we currently have the programs of war risk insurance, which means that if you build a school or you build a hospital or a factory, you actually can make your asset insured up to 50 million now. That's quite a big development. So there are other also programs that work. So there is even, if we talk business, then there is a way to protect your investments. And I believe this would be very helpful for Ukraine recovery.
Inderpreet, what do you need? Infosys, what would unlock more activity? What would be a catalyst to more ambition?
I think, when you look at people, not just in this room, but just everybody around, these are people with high intellect, lots of resources. And the world that we live in, I would just encourage everybody to figure out what cause is near and dear to their heart, and then use their commercial expertise, their resource access to create impact at scale, whatever that be, whether it's education and emergencies, it's healthcare. I think, sessions like this hopefully help people find what else motivates them at then their day job. So that would be my call to action.
Yeah, there's three things that make a difference. Ideas, as we've seen. Cash, it's obvious. We're often a bit shy about it, but the 3% is real. It's always an inhibitor. And then connections, amplification is one of the reasons I'm grateful to Infosys for putting on this session. You've been advertising the session, in your digital signs on the promenade. I don't know how many people have seen education emergencies as they walked up and down. That's cool. That's an impact. Your clients, your suppliers are aware of this initiative, and we're very grateful for that. I also hope that Infosys employees and the few that I had the chance to interact with, I get the sense this is true, but are proud and excited by this, and actually, in return, it drives some value to Infosys, because it makes your employees, who I'm sure are proud to work for Infosys anyhow, even more proud to work for Infosys and motivated. And then you've got a cycle of good going, where actually it makes more sense to do more things like this, because actually your employee is not just creating a benefit in Ukraine or South Sudan or wherever else we might go, but it's making Infosys, and of course I'm using Infosys just as an example, a more attractive workplace with a stronger culture, and so these things, ideas, cash, and connections, amplification is incredibly valuable.
Well, I'm sure I speak for everyone to say, first, it's been very moving to hear what's been happening, but at the same time, it's also been somewhat uplifting to find out what's happening. So please join me in thanking the panel.